Kōhei. I'm currently a student and I work part-time remotely for a tech company. I'm finishing up my degree here, like I'll graduate in a couple of months. But that's the boring stuff. I really like being outside. I'm based out of Seattle. I was raised in the Pacific Northwest, and so being outside is really, really important. So I love bouldering. I love, picnicking. Obviously, Seattle's got a lot of great parks. Swim. I bike to school every day. When I can, I love to run. And so being outdoors and being outside is really, really important. I think the other thing that is worth mentioning for me is that my heritage is also really, really important. So I'm half Japanese, and we'll get into that a little bit into the presentation. And I'm also half Norwegian, and so it's kind of cool to have grown up in a region where Nordic culture is pretty well represented, and Asian culture as well. And yeah, I like have been involved with kind of this community throughout like the CV days, RIP, gone but not forgotten. And it's just been really, really fun to build my online community. And I'm like thinking about this now. It's actually been such a really meaningful part of my college experience because I joined CV in 2021 when I started college, and like as it's been wrapping up, like CV has also wrapped up. So it's been this thing that I think I'll forever associate with like this time of college. Um, Man, was I a different person back in 2021 though, like speaking of which. And this big change, like obviously appearance wise too, but also everything else like in between that you can't see, like the whiskey glass, is what I want to talk about. And as you saw from the title of the talk, this is going to be about names, and like what's in a name is specifically the title of the talk. So a name represents a lot about us. It's the thing that like we use to label ourselves, what other people label us as, and it's for most of our lives like what we'll generally respond to. And so because of that, I say we are our names. Names are us. Like there is that implicit association. So changing names though has been more recently like associated with like social progressivism and things like that. But actually changing names have like names and like changing names have always been a way for people to like reaffirm their identity to the world and also to themselves. And that's what I want to talk about, because I recently changed my name and I want to walk you through kind of what the rationale was and what the background is. Um, and how that might make you think about your relationship with your own name and your identity. So, for example, in Japan, professional kabuki actors, so like Japan's traditional theater, they inherit a stage name. And so one person who plays one part has a stage name. And if they have like a son, for example, that will also go into the theater, the son will have like their name in real life. But in like the scope of the stage, they'll inherit the stage name. And so this is like with the idea that the same expressions of various characters that you would encounter in kabuki stories would be carried on throughout generations. And so in this case, it's less about a name affirming an individual identity, but a name enforcing like a certain set of characteristics or ideas or behaviors. And so names and name changes can be used in this way. And they've been doing this for a long time. There have been now 13 generations of one of the most famous characters called Ichikawa Danjuro. And I just think that that's like mind blowing that you can carry on that same name for 13 generations, kind of in the same sense. Like if you think about kings and queens of England, think about how many Georges we've had. What does it mean to be a King George? And they think about all the meaning that's been imbued in that throughout from generation to generation. Another thing that I want to talk about is like in indigenous cultures around the world, that I think names are often given and awarded based on like accomplishments or kind of the nature of your person. And these are really complex and sacred naming ceremonies that are really, really important to a lot of people. So not only are names used to like assign meaning, but they're also used to like create meaning going forward based on things that you do, things that you accomplish. So with that set up, I want to talk about, again, my name and how my relationship has changed with my names as I've changed throughout college. So this is really about why I'm changing my name to Kōhei, or why I have changed my name to Kōhei, and why that matters. So after all that set up, I want to talk about my names. So I've had two names. This is my student ID for the UW. Again, I look very different from what I do now. But my full name is Jonah Kōhei Foss, my legal full name. Jonah was my like kind of my American name, so what my parents gave me, and then they also gave me the name Kōhei, which is my Japanese name. And I've always thought about changing my name, whether that's like adopting my mom's maiden name or going by Kōhei, or like going like full Japanese and like kind of, I'll say like forsaking, but like letting go of the, kind of the anglicized version of it. But I just like really never followed through with it. But I just want to talk about some of the origins specifically of Jonah and Kōhei before I get into like how things have changed. So we can't talk about Kōhei, my Japanese name, without talking about my grandpa, my oji-chan. His name is Iwahashi Takaki, and he is really, really pivotal in how Kōhei comes to be. And the reason for that is if you look at the two names side by side, Takaki on the left and then Kōhei on the right, you'll immediately notice that this first character is actually the same. And that is intentional. My parents deliberately used the same character, just with a different reading. So it's read Taka on the left and then Ko on the right. And this character is about filial piety. So it's just like holding your parents in high regard, having a lot of respect for traditions. And when you name a kid this, it's like I almost joke it's like a little bit selfish on the parents' end of being like, oh yeah, you're gonna name your kid something that it means to like respect your parents. Like that's I find that kind of funny. Like you're gonna declare that as part of your kid's name. But it really is about the importance of like holding fast to tradition and respecting that. And then the second character is he, which is the word for balance, and it's also the first half of the part of the word for peace. So when you name a kid this, you're hoping that your kid is, balanced and harmonious and promotes these things among people. And it's actually probably the part of my name I like more, and maybe the one I like feel myself like. Yeah, so I feel like that's part of the name that I like more. So I think whether they intended for this or not, but like this is the meaning that I've like literally speaking derived out of my own name. Now let's talk about Jonah. I didn't grow up religious, but I still got a biblical name. And so once time I went to church with my friend and I was like flipping through the book and I was like, I found the book of Jonah. And if you're not familiar, like basically the book of Jonah is like low-key satire. It's about how Jonah is a prophet of God, but like directly disobeys God multiple times. And I'm hoping that some of you see the irony in which Jonah, who directly disobeys his God, in contrast with Kohei, the first character being of which you respect tradition, you respect your parents, you have a good relationship with them. And so when I was doing my research for this talk, I found that to be really, really funny because these two names, at least in their original like meanings, are like almost seem to be diametrically opposed to each other. And I thought that that was a really interesting point to illustrate how like there's such a contrast between these two names. And honestly, I found that to be like a little bit confusing because I know that that's probably not how my parents selected it, but I figured that they'd at least do their research. Okay, so now that we know a little bit more about where the two names come from, I want to talk about the relationship that they've had with each other and like how I've thought about them over time. So how did this name change happen? So I was lucky enough to go to school in both the US and Japan. This is a picture of me in elementary. I think this is middle school. It's a picture of me eating like the school lunch with my friends in middle school. And it was always a topic of conversation that I had two names. So in Japan, people would ask me, oh, what's your American name? I'd say Jonah. They go, you don't look like a Jonah. Like that makes no sense. And on the flip side, when you're in the States, you go, oh man, like what's your Japanese name, dude? I feel like I never heard about this. And I go, Kohei. They go, man, like I feel like I can never call you that. Like I've always known you as Jonah. It's like I really don't see it. And it was all well-meaning, right? It's elementary, middle schoolers. Nobody was like saying it with any ill will. But I was like, I kind of like tended to play it off. I was like, oh, it's like not that big of a deal. I'm just this here and I'm this there. So that's when I realized, okay, Kohei is like having this other name is kind of like an extraordinary thing, like to be able to bridge two cultures. Like, so how's that really interesting? And so that's when I started thinking about like the name change stuff. We'll skip forward a couple of years to my sophomore year of college when I got this mentor of mine. I met this mentor of mine. His name's Scott Owen. He works for Keen Sandals in Portland. So super cool guy, super cool company. And he's also half Japanese. And we were talking about like he's legitimately the first like representation of Asian American people that I had like in the business world, other people who I'd like look up to, or like, full Asian or full Caucasian, or, something somewhere in between. And so he told me, man, hey, if you've got this Kōhei name, like companies are really indexing on like DEI hiring. Like if you recruit using this name, you might get a couple of extra calls back. And I see Pedro laughing there, but I was laughing too. I was like, dude, no way. Like this feels like a cheat code. And whether that was correlation or causation, I got 4 internship offers that summer. So, I mean, I think that if nothing else, that really, I was like, oh, wait, this is cool. I'm feeling pretty capable. Kohei's capable. Like I'm showing that I'm proficient. I'm confident. I can operate well in this professional workspace. And that was another step, another bit of meaning that was now imbued into the name Kōhei. The next part of this is kind of funny, but it is really, really, really matters. So this is Kitty. I dated Kitty for a little bit in college, and she is also half Japanese. And she was the first person who I have dated who was not white. And that was really important because I didn't really understand how personal this could be. Because until then, Kohei was always just like with my friends, professionally, until I had somebody who I was like romantically and emotionally really invested in, who affirmed this identity for me, who also understood what it's like to be mixed. I didn't realize how good it could be. I didn't realize how good it could feel. And so even though the relationship itself didn't actually last very long, being called the name you want to be called by a pretty girl who also understands what it's like to, have that relationship with names and culture, that was a really big deal. And so I felt like that built a lot of confidence in Kōhei. I was like, okay, so not only am I, professionally capable, I'm like socially capable, I'm attractive. And so that was another bit of meaning that was now imbued in Kōhei. So I accepted one of my internship offers. I went to work for Starbucks in their project management division. And on my first day of work, I had to pull one of my buddies aside who had also got an internship at Starbucks and who'd known me as Jonah before. I had to pull my friend aside and say, hey, Ryan, like I'm doing this thing, like I'm going by Kōhei. It's a better reflection of my cultural identity, the whole 9 yards. And he's like, okay. And that was it. Like that was the end of the discussion. He called me Kōhei for the rest of the summer. And I was surprised, not because I thought he would take it poorly, but I made it like a much bigger deal in my head of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to ask someone who I already know to make this adjustment for me. And I went through the rest of that summer as Kōhei. And it felt so real. And it was wonderful to feel that tangibleness. And even though it was so special for me because I had changed my name, it was actually great that the people who I'd introduced myself to, as the people who I'd introduced myself as Kōhei, like they didn't know me as anything else. And so that immediate snap to reality was like, oh wait, this is fucking awesome. Like this is just reality now. I've made this change. And so that was a really, really good summer. So somewhere along the way, I actually had somebody ask me, like, I was starting to change like my name online. You guys have probably seen some of this. People who have been on CV, like you've seen me make this change. And so people had seen it online, like they come talk to me about it. Go, oh, is this some sort of like alter ego? Like, what are we doing here? And I was like, no, this isn't my name. It's a given name. But the more I thought about it, like low key, it was like I was building myself an alter ego over that time. So like over all of the events that I described, and of course many, many more, I built up this new meaning for what Kōhei meant. Obviously, there was, the stuff that we've talked about before of like, where does my name come from? And, what is the meaning that my parents intended for it? But I hope you guys understand now that like over the course of gradually making this shift, I had also created all of this meaning for this name, which was not new, but it was new in the sense that I had assigned my own meaning to it. So it was really, really important. So armed with this like new confidence and this identity that I had built for myself and the meaning that I had imbued into my name, a couple weeks ago I did a really big presentation in front of a business club that like is really important to me. It's like my main source of community in college, and I like basically hard launched the name, which is kind of funny. It was like kind of like a product release. Um, but like I had to teach people how to pronounce it because Kōhei seems pretty simple, but I think I just needed like a little bit of a mnemonic, and so I was like Kōhei, no way, no way, Kōhei. And so that is also now my like Blue Sky handle, like that I own that URL now. But Kohei now rhymes with Noe, and I feel like that's just been a really fun way to like reaffirm that for myself. Like other people get a kick out of it, and I think it's memorable. So, what is in a name? To review, I knew a name could be an affirmation of a cultural identity, and I also knew that it could be like a marker of achievement, as we've discussed before. But what I didn't really know before this was that names can be changed, and names do change. And the meaning, more importantly, the meaning that a name has can also change. And while I think changing your name is not something to like take lightly, and obviously it's a very like I mean, anyone who's done any rebrand knows that like changing a name and changing an identity takes time and adjustment. Um, I hope what I've talked about today makes you consider like where does my name come from, or where does my name come from, or like what meaning does it carry for other people, and what meaning do I let it carry, and if that's the meaning I want it to carry. And so I hope that this is, a chance to think about your name and your identity, and then maybe going forward, thinking about how you want to construct or reconstruct that going forward. So thank you so much for letting me share this really, really important part of my life with you. Yeah, that's all I've got.